evening, Warriors, and welcome into another edition of the R&R Sports Report. My name is Randy Isbell. With me, as always, Mr. Robert Hagan, who's still on mute, just so you know, Robert. What's going on, sir?
I'm trying to get this voice back and my mouth to stop hurting a little bit. Dentist work on my last day of school off, so it's time to get back to it.
Kids were not thrilled to go back to school, especially Addie. She says it's boring, which is sad, but it's kindergarten. She's not learning too much just yet. But they are back. We'll be back at the LC side in like 2 weeks. Getting all that all aligned up. But today is going to be a very interesting show. Obviously, the first hour, very NFL focused, but the NFL world was definitely rocked yesterday, and we will get very much into that. And then we will do our best to bring you a normalized show and still talk about the rest of the action that happened before really the NFL became not as important as we all thought it was going into Monday Night Football. And then the second hour is going to be a lot about the Avista Holiday Tournament, which was last week. Robert was there for every single game. I was there for all 8 games the first day, and then my body gave out on me, and I was not there the next 2. But we will have Lapwai head basketball coach on the boys' side, Zach Eastman, who defended their championship on the boys' side, and Lapwai on the girls' side won as well. We were going to try to get Ada on, but Lapwai is actually playing a rescheduled game from a game that got canceled back in December tonight. So she was definitely not available for that. But we're going to have Mike Tatko on as well, the tournament director. So a lot of Avista Holiday Tournament talk in the second hour, as well as college football, which had some crazy semifinals going on. Talk a little bit about some LC sports, and that probably is going to be just about it. Jam-packed show today, Robert.
Oh, 100%. And you look at what the high school getting back into it, the sports. Lapway's got a big matchup tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really debating whether or not to drive out to Lapway tomorrow and catch number 2 in the state, Lapway, or number 1 in the state, Lapway, taking on number 3, Lakeside. So it's we're back into it, dude. It's ready to go.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into the NFL, and that means we got to talk about Damar Hamlin, who that was such a scary situation. I know, Robert, you weren't able to watch it live, which probably was for the best, because I know it shook me, and then having to go into the Tribune afterwards was difficult, and just trying to stay focused while just having my ears glued to ESPN, just hoping for any kind of updates just that were just not happening. But if you have not heard, which if you are watching this show and you have not heard, I'm confused. But Hamlin collided with Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins while making a tackle in the first quarter. It looked harmless, normal tackle, if anything. Hamlin stands up and then instantly collapses. Was administered CPR and was given a defibrillator on the field, where his heartbeat was restored while still on the field. Just scary situations there. The announcers announced that the players were going to have 5 minutes to warm up after the ambulance left. Obviously, none of the players really moved. We saw Joe Burrow throwing a football a little bit, and there was confusion as to why they were just going to go back to normal after all that. Obviously, it only took a minute or 2 before the coaches got together and said, no, this isn't happening. Both teams went to the locker room. The game was suspended, later postponed, and they announced today that it will not be played this week, and that week 18 right now will go as scheduled. So that game now completely up in the air, but far from the importance of it, as we all still continue to wait for big updates on Damar Hamlin. I know his uncle came out today and said that his breathing apparatus that was giving him 100% oxygen help is now only giving him 50%, which is good, but he's still sedated and not aware or awake or anything. But we'll take any progress we can. But Robert, obviously, like I said, you weren't able to watch it live, but I'm sure you have caught up with everything and watched a lot of the reactions since then, what are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I finally got to see it about 30 minutes after the first happened. Happened local time here about 5:55, and so I think it was about 6:30 when I finally got a chance to see uh, everything go down. Like you said, it looked very harmless. And listening with some past players talk and listening, especially Ryan Carter on ESPN, him talking about
Ryan Clark.
Ryan Clark doesn't that bouncing up. After you make a tackle, you bounce back up, but then if you get a little woozy, you go back down to a knee. They kind of knew it had to be something major. You look at him, the way he collapsed down, it just. Tough, and I think not only just the players around him, but the other one that I really think might have he hasn't said much about anything. He has posted to his Twitter page, and that's T. Higgins. I mean, T. Higgins, it was a clean shot. I mean, you look at that. He might have lowered his shoulder a little bit that catches him in the sternum,
Yeah,
in
but
the
that's
chest area.
a normal
But
football play.
yeah,
Yeah.
And I feel bad for that man to know that his hit into him caused going into it. I did chat with Denise a little bit, and just from dealing with a coaching aspect, I'm taking myself out of the fan aspect now, put myself in the coaching aspect. Is I know what some of these uh, the chest protectors look like on these pads nowadays. They're not as bulky as when I wore them years ago. I mean, they don't go down near as much, especially the defensive back ones, the wide receiver ones. Those guys want to be fast. They want to be able to get their hands on the ball. Does it go to the point where we look at the idea of making sure that those pads are a little bit different now for that shocking hit inside? I mean, it's a legal shot and all that. I'm not
while the pads are not as big or bulky as they used to be when you and I were growing up, they're also better. Like I don't think anyone's like, oh well, they made them smaller and now this happened and this is why it's happened. Like the NFL for decades now have improved the technology that goes into these equipment, or you see it with helmets as well, with all the concussions going on. And it's not that they went, well, we want to be faster, so let's take away some of the safety of the game and make our pads smaller, and then the hits could cause more damage. Is they have come out with more knowledge and more technology in those pads that they can be smaller but still absorb that kind of impact. It was just one of those just absolute freak situations, and I just want to go out here and say I've listened and watched a lot of different talking heads. One being not Skip Bayless. I do not care what that man has to say at all after his tweet last night. I'm sure he has tried to backstep even more on his show. I refuse to watch, but there was a few, especially on Colin Cowherd, they were talking about it. Rich Eisen as well, and I'm just gonna kind of echo what they said, especially coming from somebody that I was upset that they might have restarted that game at first, and we all kind of have that quick instinct on finding someone to blame. We do it all the time. Anytime there's any kind of scary situation, especially anything that is outside of our control, we go out there and try to blame anything. We're going to blame the NFL. We're going to blame the pads. We're going to blame, even though it's a Monday Night Football game, we're going to blame that the NFL has added, still has preseason games and they make them play on Thursdays and they've added the extra week and they do all this stuff. Or the NFL or Roger Goodell did this incorrect. Like, nobody could have anticipated this. Nobody has a game plan for any of this. And now coming out almost or just about exactly 24 hours later, I don't blame the NFL for anything that happened before the incident or after. There was a lot of confusion as to what to do, especially confusion with the whole 5 minutes to warm up thing. I just think that is part of protocol. That that's their protocol. If a player breaks their leg and they get an ambulance has to come out there. After the ambulance, we give the players 5 minutes to warm up when we get back to it. And I think some people were out there going, okay, I guess that's just what we do from this point. And the impact of the situation was a lot different. I think the cooler heads prevailed. Everyone realized there's zero chance we're playing a football game today. It takes some time to get that all worked out logistically. I think the NFL also was really hoping to hear some really good news about Hamlin in that 30 minutes to an hour after the incident, where they can go, okay, this happened. It was scary. He's now stable. Everything's good. We will be back tomorrow. I think that's what they were kind of waiting for, so they could just make it one giant announcement. Obviously, that has not happened. But while I am one of those people that blamed the NFL last night and the way they handled it, now that I've been able to think about it for a little bit and listen to other people and the explanations, it's just one of those weird, crazy situations that none of us are ready for. And I think the NFL and the way ESPN handled it was completely fair and well done.
Yeah, we have never seen anything like this ever happen before, to this severity, and for what they did. As I was listening and talking to a lot of them, and I'm going to agree with it, the medical personnel that
Yeah.
took the field in the minutes after T. Higgins looks at him and sees, and both officials kind of turn towards the benches, you could tell something was wrong. And for them to act in the way that they did, and for what they had to do, those first 10 minutes was unbelievable. And I mean, I've even shared, I've had a couple people text me today, ask me about that. And I keep processing what would have happened if it would have been at my football field, at Adams Field, at Bengal Field. What do we do in all that? You know, these guys are trained for this, and I guess, listening to one of the reports, and I don't remember who it was. I remember if it was on FS1 or if it was ESPN, but they talk about these medical people actually meet with the officials an hour before game day and saying, okay, this is my job. Here I am. You can see me out. And how they have gotten to the point nowadays that each person, they have a guy there that is in that routine, and for the entire group from both sides coming together to do and take care of Hamlin, I think was the best thing that's going to prove whether or not this man, is even breathing, 24 hours later, like think the things he's went through. I mean, it's because of the training and how they keep going through. And you said it earlier, NFL has spent money and has done things to make the game better and protect the players. And I think that was shown last night. And as not knowing whether or not the game was going to happen, I think the humanity finally came out, and NFL saw what it was causing to some of these players. You look at White, you look at Joe Burrow, you look at all of those guys.
Stephon Diggs was
Yeah.
beside himself, and
you look at these guys, and for them to see what was going on, and you knew there was not going to be any game, a half hour after that ambulance left. And to see Stephon Diggs at the hospital just like minutes after the whole when they finally decide to postpone the game, it just tells you how much this man means to his team and to both sides. I mean, to the entire community.
And talk about the good in humanity, and like you said with the NFL, just the foundation that Hamlin was running for the what was it, the Chasing M's Foundation Community Toy Drive, where he was looking for $2,500 was his goal. It was like at $1,000 before this whole incident, and I think was it Colin Cowherd? I heard that said it best, where it was just people were just looking for anything to try to go, well, we have no control over this, so let me just try to help in any way possible. and started donating to. They found this GoFundMe page with him and just started donating, and it's now over $5.5 million. Just 24 hours later is just a very cool situation, and just it sucks that a horrible thing like this has to happen for a good story to also come out of it. And hopefully, in the end, Hamlin will be able to see how much money has been raised for his foundation because he'll make a full recovery. But it's just one of those crazy things, and it's still 24 hours later, and that's all you watch on ESPN or Fox or CBS. It's just this is all we can talk about because it's on the forefront, and we're all still concerned on what's going to happen with Hamlin, and hopefully he can and recover, and whether he ever plays football again, I think right now is completely secondary. You want him to be okay, and you know the whole thing with sports, and we always talk about those big things, and football's life or death, and going to war, and we have all these cliches, or you hear these players like, I'd do anything, I'd die on this field and stuff. It's like it's all talk until like we get into a situation like this that none of us are ready for. It was the same thing, WWE back in was it 97 or 98 when Owen Hart died. They continued that show, and I don't think anyone wanted it to, but they had that mentality of the show must go on, and people are still traumatized to this day. So I'm glad the NFL did not, and hopefully it's not a death situation with Hamlin and he can make a recovery. But still, I applaud the NFL, however long it took them to come up with the decision and cancel this game. I'm glad they made the right decision and canceled it, because you could just tell that nobody there wanted it to continue.
Yeah, and you hit on it. The big thing is people were looking for something to reach out to try to connect with this, and how many people have learned about who this man is at
Mhm.
the age of just 24. I mean, and what he was making, doing stuff with his toy drive in a project that he started when he was at the University of Pittsburgh, and for him to just get $2,500 was his goal in this, and to see. Early this morning, they were right at, I want to say, close to 120,000 people donated. They're pushing over 189,000 people donating
Mhm.
to this GoFundMe. Like you said, $5.5 million. It just identifying who this person is, and
Mhm.
people are trying to learn about him. The other bigger things, I know I sent you a picture of it, but we've seen the pictures of the Twitter accounts of the Buffalo Bills all
Mhm.
around kneeling, everybody posting things. Yeah, I sent you a picture a little bit ago that Baltimore has lit up M&T Bank Stadium in red,
Mhm.
white, and blue for the Steelers, or for the Bills. All of them have changed their social media accounts
Mhm.
to say pray for Damar. And so, I mean, it's affecting not only just those two teams involved, but it's affecting uh, other teams, to past players, to players that are getting ready. I mean, I don't think they've really hit on any of these kids that are finishing up in college that are getting ready to come up. But I
Mhm.
mean, it's got to affect some of these newbies that are getting ready to get drafted in April. So,
Oh yeah, I can see there we will have players decide to retire after a situation like this. We've seen it where people retire far earlier than we expect, just from the injuries that they take throughout their short career. And now you have a scary situation like this, and I wouldn't blame them. You know, maybe this is an eye-opening thing for people, and I know a lot of people are now crying for changes in the NFL. I was like, I just don't know what you change, because it would look like a normal tackle. Nothing went crazy. It just was a freak incident. And again, I don't know what you can change to keep this from happening, because we still don't know how it even happened
mhm,
at this point. But so definitely want to send our well wishes, like everyone else out there, to Damar Hamlin for sure. And I now want to get to the far more secondary point of all of this, as we try to do our best to now shift to our normal show. and talk about the ramifications of not playing this game last night. Again, 100% agree that it should not have been played. I'm very glad that they did not try to force it while he is still in critical condition over today or tomorrow as well. But they have now announced it will not be played this week, and they at this point are not going to change anything with Week 18. We will have our 16 games scheduled on 2 on Saturday and the other 14 on Sunday as planned. So that leaves this one game up in the air between the Bills and the Bengals with a lot on the line. If the Bengals would have won this game, they would have clinched the AFC North and stayed in the hunt for the top seed. Buffalo wins the game. They are the number 1 seed right now, still ahead of Kansas City and holding that tiebreaker over them. And if you just do not play this game at all now and you give both teams a tie, that really affects a lot of the seeding and a lot of the playoff situations. I know a lot of people think it's about money. It's really about the quote unquote fairness of the game while still trying to be considerate to everyone's feelings and not rushing them back out on the field. So what do they do? How do we get this game in, and do we get this game in?
You know, I got asked that as I was at the dentist office today. It's like, well, what do you think we should do? And you know, the fan in me, I hate it saying it, because it does affect Baltimore. It does affect the AFC North. If Buffalo, was trailing 7-3 with 5:58 left to go in the game when all this went down, what would have happened if Buffalo would have won? I mean, then we're back to the whole tie again. The now the Ravens have a chance to win this, sweep them, move them back up. They're now the AFC North champs. Who do you face? Then Jacksonville looks at somebody else in the wild card. As far as a fan, you want to see that game completed, but as a human right now, I'm wondering, do they even go ahead with Week 18? How many of these people with the NFLPA that will, with the Players Association, how many of them reach out to figure what they want to do?
Well, we listen. Like obviously, we're still in the heat of this moment, and everyone's very concerned. But Week 18 is not going to get affected. No games are going to get canceled on Week 18. Nothing's going to get pushed back because it's a week later, and the NFL already has precedents. When Sean Taylor was murdered, I want to say Washington played that next week, so they're going to play Week 18, and it's going to go as scheduled. I do believe. It's just that this one game that still looms and could, as you say, determine a lot, especially with everything that's going on. And say Baltimore beats Cincinnati, but Cincinnati gets this tie, Cincinnati would still win the division. Say Buffalo beats New England, but they get a tie with Cincinnati. Kansas City's the 1 seed, even though Buffalo didn't lose this game. There's so many different implications to it, and it's so tough to figure out. My solution, and we'll see if they do it, is you play Week 18 as normal. Then the week after that, you just have a standalone 1 game between Cincinnati and Buffalo, because no matter what happens Week 18, that game is going to matter. So you have them play a standalone game, and then the next week we start the playoffs. So you push everything back in the playoffs 1 week. We get rid of the Pro Bowl weekend. You can do the Pro Bowl after the Super Bowl if you really still want to have that game and that weekend. And then the Super Bowl is still on the same date, because obviously you can't move the Super Bowl because there's so much money already riding on that instance. That is my idea. We will see what they do, but it would not surprise me if this game just never gets played. They call it a tie. Fairness out the window. It's all about humanity and just saying this game, we don't want to go back to it. So we'll see. We'll see over the next couple of days. I don't think the NFL is going to rush into any situation. And I forget who said it, but I do believe that the Buffalo Bills should have the final say.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. And with With the fairness of it giving them a tie, I don't know how any other way you can do it if you don't play the game out. You have to play it, period. And if they're not going to play that game out, it's just going to affect. I think it is going to affect more of the mental state of the players if they play it right away or they play it after the fact, go back to Cincinnati, and Buffalo to go back in there. I think that's the bigger thing.
Yeah, for sure. And again, we'll see. We'll see what happens here over the next few days, maybe even a week before we find any of that out. All right, let's get to the other games and let's get to some whatever we can as far as questions go. Where did my thing go? There it is.
Who would cross the bridge of death must answer me these questions three. The other side he sees.
All right, let's get into the other games. Let's get as close to normalcy as we can, and then we'll get into some Avista tournament stuff at the top of the hour. But let's get into it. Buy or sell, sir? Your Baltimore Ravens really missing Lamar Jackson. Losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers and Kenny Pickett, who now has back-to-back games where he has a fourth quarter comeback win, winning it on his final drive. They win it 16-13. Buy or sell, Kenny Pickett will be a top 15 quarterback next season.
I think it's a lot closer than you think to that break point. It's going to be a close sell. I think he's sitting right about probably 16, 17, 18 in the top quarterbacks in that. But listen, he has proved that he can play. I think it's just going to be another year or so down the road to really get to that point.
Haven says sell too. Looking through these teams, it might be a buy.
It's going to be close.
I mean, other than Josh Allen, is anybody in the AFC East better than Kenny Pickett?
AFC East.
Tua?
I
Tua
think
maybe.
Tua.
Okay. Mac Jones?
No.
Any of the 73 quarterbacks that have played for the Jets?
What was it that I saw today, or was it yesterday? They talked about they had there's been 65 different starting quarterbacks this season.
Yeah, I think if his Tyrod Taylor plays for the Giants, which they're thinking the Giants will rest people because they're locked into the 6th seed, we'll break a record for most starting quarterbacks in a year. So you're saying two right now, right? Tua and Allen. Obviously, we'll say Burrow.
All right.
We'll say Lamar. Yep. Deshaun Watson. He's not looked good since he's come back.
But he does have some experience under his belt. I would put him
so we'll
to
say
the upper side,
okay.
Yes.
Trevor Lawrence, we'd say yeah.
Yes.
Who's the backup now for Tennessee? Malik Willis, right?
Yep.
I'm not going to put him over Kenny Pickett.
No.
I'm not going to put whatever happens in Indianapolis over Kenny Pickett. Same with Houston. That's going to be a rookie quarterback most likely. Bryce Young, I guess. And you can't say he is, right?
No, not right.
Okay,
now.
Obviously Mahomes, obviously Herbert, Derek Carr wherever he goes. Do you put Carr over Pickett?
I think, yeah, I would.
Do you put Russell Wilson over Pickett right now? I don't think so.
It would be very close. I would put Russell right now probably 12, 13, 14 on the list.
I think he's below. I put Hurts over him. I'd put Prescott over him. Daniel Jones is an interesting one. Obviously, he pushed that team to the playoffs.
Daniel Jones has been proving himself. Jimmy and I have had many discussions over the last couple of weeks about him, and you watch him rush for his touchdowns this last weekend. He's trying to prove a point to this Giants team and what's going on there.
Yeah, I still don't buy Daniel Jones, so I would keep him below, but I would understand people putting him above. Washington, I'm not taking either of those guys over Kenny Pickett. Cousins is another interesting one. I think he's underrated because everyone just thinks of his primetime implosions. I'm going to put Kenny Pickett over Jared Goff.
Yeah, probably.
You put Aaron Rodgers over him. I almost said Trubisky. That's not the quarterback.
But
Justin Fields.
But
Justin Fields has really been bad. I mean, he makes some explosive plays, but his accuracy's been garbage the last few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't put Pickett. I don't put Fields over Pickett. Tom Brady, I guess you still have to, but nobody else in the NFC South. Ritter, Sam Darnold, Jameis Winston. I'm not putting any of them over Pickett right now. Do you put Brock Purdy or any of the other San Francisco people over him? Because we just don't know. I don't put I'm not putting Geno over Kenny Pickett. He's had a fantastic year, but I'm not putting him over Kenny Pickett. Stafford's a broken mess, and Kyler Murray is completely imploded. So he's right around that 15 range, but I'm going to say sell as well. But I'm with you. He's in that 16 to 20 range right now, and that's way better than what we were expecting coming into the year.
You look at him right now, according to ESPN, based on it, completions, he is sitting 21st. If you look at his yards per game, he is sitting at 28th. So,
yeah, but
so it's going to be close, you know. So,
all right, Green Bay Packers crushed the Minnesota Vikings 41-17. Buy or sell, the Green Bay Packers will go further in the playoffs than the Minnesota Vikings.
I think it's a sell. For me, and I hate to say this, and it's just because I'm a fantasy owner. I picked up Aaron Jones up and down season all year. Mm-hmm. You got to find some consistency with what's going on there. Watson has been such a shining part, but I don't think it's enough to get through the playoffs.
I want the Hawks to get in. Oh, Haven. They're not going to get in. They should beat the Rams. If the Lions get in, then the Seahawks should feel very bad about themselves because that means they lost to old Baker Mayfield. I'm also going to say sell, not because I think Seattle is going to get in, but just a quick question to you.
Okay.
Green Bay Packers get in. Who do they play in the first round most likely?
I don't remember.
The San Francisco 49ers. Ooh. They're not beating the 49ers. Minnesota right now, we get the Giants. If they stay as the 3 seed, Giants are locked as the 6 seed. Yes, the Giants can give them a game. We just saw that a couple weeks ago where it took a 61-yard field goal to beat them. That could be an interesting game. And I could see the Vikings losing that game, though I think I would pick Minnesota right now. But I don't think Green Bay is going to get by San Francisco. So could they get eliminated in the same round? Yes, but that was not the question. Tampa Bay defeated Carolina 30-24 to still somehow win the NFC South. And they're 8-8, so they could actually finish above 500. But buy or sell, Tampa Bay will beat Dallas in the wild card round.
No, I think Dallas is way too much, even with TB12. I think that the defense is just too Micah Parsons. I think Dallas just runs all over the place with them.
Haven says buy. I like it. I'm also selling. It is a fun time to make fun of Cowboys fans and their terrible playoff history. But Tampa Bay is really not that good, even though they did win the NFC South. But there's no good team in the NFC South, so that's not really an accomplishment this year. Obviously, Tom Brady in the playoffs is a different animal. But I think Dallas really does have too much. And they have been playing a lot better over the last few weeks. I want to go into the playoffs rolling, and I think Dallas is right now.
I think that for me with that whole thing is, yes, they are starting to roll. Dallas is getting a lot better rushing the ball with Pollard and Zeke, but I think for me it's got to be the consistency of what the Tampa Bay receivers are doing, and they have not been consistent. You look at the way that Tom Brady, his reactions to easy drop passes and what his players are doing route-wise. You would have thought by week 17 these teams would have a good relationship with each other, playing relationship, and know what expected of them.
What we saw at the beginning of the year with Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cobb is what we're seeing right now with Tom Brady and Mike Evans. He's the one guy I trust, and that's where he's going, and it's not going to work in the playoffs. New Orleans defeated Philadelphia 20-10. So that whole Gardner Minshew talk, and please stop again. He's not a starting quarterback in the NFL. If Hurts comes back in week 18, which all signs are pointing in that direction, and he plays great in a win, which would lock up the top seed for Philadelphia, he will win the MVP. Buy or sell?
I would love to say bye here, and it kind of boiled down to a conversation I heard just before I left earlier today. Nick Wright, who is a guy that I do not care for 100%.
I love Nick Wright.
Nick Wright,
he's funny.
Made a great point, and I thought about it a little bit, but then the rebuttals on the show he was on made some sense too. So I can see this still going both directions. That's going to put, Jalen Hurts not playing for like 5 weeks.
No, he only missed 2. He missed 2 weeks. He missed the Dallas game and he missed.
But it's going to be about 5 weeks if they can pull off a win. Then they get the first round bye. So would you want him to not be game time ready for that? But on the other hand, like you said, there's still lots that can happen. If they lose, they shift down. They end up playing. I'm drawing a blank. They would end up playing
most likely the 7th seed or the Giants.
Right. And so, would you want to go against that
No.
Giants team?
I'd rather have a bye week. Period.
So it's a big one. But if he does play, I mean, he is what's kept that team going. He's still got to be a big conversation piece for MVP.
I thought about this, and he's still, I think, second in the MVP vote. I do think Mahomes basically has this thing locked up, even though he has been in second gear the last month and a half. And we'll get to that here in a second. But as much as I would like to say, if Hurts goes out there and just balls on Sunday, and the Eagles go out and they dominate the game and they lock up the 1 seed, then we can go, yeah, Hurts was gone for 2 weeks. They lost both of those games. One of them to Dallas, and then this one to the Saints. Hurts comes back, and all of a sudden they're rolling again. So, of course, he's the MVP. The big argument against him, though, is he's playing the New York Giants, who are locked in at the 6th seed, and there's a very good chance the Giants aren't going to play anybody. So is it that big of a accomplishment to beat the second stringers for the Giants in Week 18?
Yeah.
I think it's the one big argument against them.
Yeah, and that would agree, because that was the conversation that came up was, what's the chances? New York's already sealed their playoff game, so, and I think they have sealed the 6th seed, right?
They're locked in. They
locked in the 6th. So, I mean, why would you chance it?
Yep. This will be their bye week, kind of like what we saw with Tennessee against Dallas on Thursday night. Still really mad. I mark the wrong thing on the sheet I gave you, even though I said Dallas on the show. For whatever reason, my migrained head on Wednesday marked Tennessee. It was sad. Not that it helped. It was going to change anything in our overall picks. Last one here. Kansas City defeated Denver 27-24. Just real quick. The Chiefs have an issue with playing in second gear when playing bad teams.
100% by that. They just have not played well. It's like you have in our notes, they've kind of shifted down, and they're just playing to the level of the team that they're facing. They're not.
They play like an NBA team in the regular season. They just don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to pick a side. We'll get through some of these games real quick. The Chargers beat the Rams 31-10. Giants beat the Colts 38-10. And Dallas on Thursday night beat Tennessee 27-13. All 3 of those teams right now are wild card teams. Dallas could still win the division if the Eagles can't beat the Giants and Dallas beats Washington. But which wild card team right now is the most dangerous to make a Cincinnati-like run?
I hate to jump on a bandwagon with them, and I'm one of those ones from years past that have picked on them. But listen, Dallas's defense is just getting so much better. I think that's the big thing. Look out for them to make a huge push. If they can get through that first round, I think have a very good chance. Their defense has just been so sound. And if they keep rotating that ball between Pollard and Zeke Elliott, I think it's a big plus.
I think they're a very good team. I think they're an interesting play in the NFC, but to me, it's the Los Angeles Chargers who are completely rolling right now. They struggled early on in the year. I picked the Chargers to win the AFC West mostly because I wanted just to not pick Kansas City and it felt boring to pick the Chiefs to roll again. So I'm not surprised that the Chiefs won the division. I was surprised they won it 2 months ago because the Chargers struggled so much. But they are rolling now. The offense is going well. The defense is going well. I think they could stand up well against a Kansas City the way they're playing right now. Maybe a Buffalo, maybe a Cincinnati, but we said the same thing with the Bengals last year. And is no. Haven is being nice to you.
No, I
Baltimore, no chance.
I think they can play good, but it's just we were talking just those couple of teams, so that's the only reason why I don't say Baltimore. But
well, Baltimore's I said a wild card team.
They're
a wild card team. They are a wild card team.
So I think they've got a chance, but they've got to get Lamar back and playing somewhat healthy.
No. Pick a side here. Detroit defeated Chicago 41-10. Patriots defeated Miami 23-21. So to bring in the other team, I'm not just talking about these teams, but out of Miami, Pittsburgh, Tennessee, and Detroit and Green Bay, the 5 teams that still have a chance to make the playoffs, but are currently on the outside looking in. What is the one team that the rest of the playoff teams are going, no, you stay out. We want no part of you.
It has to be Detroit. 7 of the last 9. You look at the last 9 weeks, they have played unreal. I do have a little bit of an issue with them playing the late game, because there's a chance that if Seattle wins, then their destiny is already locked out, and so that game does not matter. If
yes,
Seattle
it does.
Wins, if Seattle wins, it does not matter.
Yes, it does.
No,
how does it not matter?
It won't matter because they will have a better record on.
No,
on
it does not matter for Detroit. But so Detroit will want to go out there and ruin Green Bay.
Yeah, I mean they could play.
So there's that is the one game that is guaranteed to matter. It is either on Sunday Night Football, Green Bay gets in or Detroit gets in, or Green Bay gets in or Seattle gets in. No matter what, that game matters.
I would have loved to have seen, and I hate saying this, but I would have loved to have seen those 2 games going at the same time, so Detroit doesn't have to be watching what Seattle's doing going into what's
well,
prior.
They would be watching them while they're going on. It's either way, Detroit either going to try to get in or spoil Green Bay. That I think it was the clear, obvious pick. I know a lot of people were saying Buffalo and New England, because right now New England's the 7 seed, so it would be a wild card spot or the top seed in the AFC. Or Cincinnati, Baltimore obviously may not matter if they call it a try. I honestly, it was just Detroit and Green Bay was the obvious choice once they moved Jacksonville and Tennessee to Saturday, which also I think was a good choice because that's not going to be a good game. All right, fill in the blank. Let's do it lightning round time. Let's get back on track here, right? Ready?
Yeah.
Seattle, unfortunately, eliminated my New York Jets 23-6. We can talk about Seattle next week, but I'm a Jets fan. We got to talk about it. As a whole, the Jets season was blank.
For me, I'm putting the word roller coaster. The only reason I'm putting it, Breece Hall. I think if Breece Hall stays healthy, it's a different story.
It hurts. And it's kind of the Breece Hall is the same answer for me. Full of great signs for the future. If they had a quarterback on this team that was competent, I'm so, as much as I'm sad that the Jets got eliminated, Mike White playing poorly in that game helps prove Mike White's not the answer, people. Just because you are better than what the garbage is that is Zach Wilson does not make you a competent quarterback. It just means you're better than garbage.
You just need to start your veteran on the team.
Derek Carr will be a Jet next year. Speaking of Derek Carr, he won't be with the Raiders next year. San Francisco did defeat the Raiders 37-34 in overtime. The Raiders starting quarterback on week 1 of the 2023 season is
I'm saying unpredictable. We've looked at what this ownership has done over the last few years, what they've done moves to get Devontae Adams in there with the movie and all that. I'm going to say unpredictable. I don't know what they're going to do. Who knows? It's kind of in the air.
I put a rookie quarterback, but I have a weird feeling that Tom Brady's going to go there next year.
And that could be a strong possibility.
Just have a weird feeling about it. I don't want it to happen. I'm not going to predict it to happen, but I don't know. I got a weird feeling. Jacksonville defeated Houston 31-3. The team Jacksonville wants to see in the wild card round, because we all believe that they're going to beat Tennessee on Saturday night and win the AFC South. But the team that the Jacksonville Jaguars want to see in the wild card round is blank.
It's got to be Baltimore. What they did to Baltimore earlier, I think they know that they can defeat them and they can come back to win. Hopefully, it's a different game.
Baltimore's the easiest choice?
I think so.
So it's Baltimore. So what are your other options? You're locked into the 4 seed if you win on Saturday. Mm-hmm. So it's if Cincinnati does play that game against Buffalo and loses that game and loses to Baltimore, okay, now you get Cincinnati. Or you can get the Chargers. Or you can get Baltimore. And Baltimore is the easy choice. Mm-hmm. Cleveland defeated Washington 24-10. And then Ron Rivera was surprised to find out that they were eliminated if Green Bay won later on in the day. And that's exactly what happened. Washington is out. So I can no longer stress about eliminating them weeks ago in our eliminator. But Ron Rivera, not understanding the playoff scenarios after the loss, is blank.
I said ridiculous. Do you see his face? It was like he didn't have a clue. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he literally showed his hands of having nothing there. And for me, it's been a struggle watching him coach. Yes, I know his health issues has been bad, but when is it time for him to step down? Because I think it's got to be sooner than later.
Now, his decision to start Nick Foles shows his incompetency at the head coaching position. Or Carson Wentz, right? They're the same quarterback. They're
interchangeable.
You're right. Carson Wentz, excuse me. Either way, starting him this late in the year after what he did at the beginning of the year for Washington, which tanked their season, and why I eliminated them way back when, just shows that he's not ready. He's not fit for the job anymore. Mm-hmm. Will he get fired on Black Monday? Probably not, and he probably doesn't deserve it. But to me, I don't think coaches go into a game looking at if we lose, what happens? He's going, if we win our next 2 games, we're in. Okay, we didn't win this game, so what do we have to do next week? Oh, we're out if Green Bay loses because Green Bay plays Detroit? Oh, I didn't even realize that, because he's focused on winning. To me, that's on the Washington's PR guy. He needs to be letting him know before he steps up there on the podium that, hey, just so you know, if Green Bay wins, we're eliminated. So you get ready for those kind of questions because they're coming. Mm-hmm. I think his PR guy let him down. I don't blame a coach for not understanding what happens if you lose a Week 17 game, if you get eliminated or not, because they're just focused on the positive and trying to win. Last one, Atlanta defeats Arizona 20-19. Cliff Kingsbury will blank on Black Monday.
He gone.
You're fired. What?
Yeah, he gone.
He's out. It's done. You did this the last 2 years. We didn't do it on this show. How many firings?
Wow.
Today? Just real quick. We have 3 already, right?
I think we've had 3 right now. So I'm gonna say over under is going to be 4.5.
I'll take the under because we've already had 3.
Yeah, I think it's gonna stay.
4 might be the right answer.
I think 4 is going to be the answer.
So look at the playoff picture real quick. So the Eagles right now have the top spot, but they still haven't even clinched the division. But if they win on Sunday, they'll be the top seed. Niners are 2, Vikings are 3, Tampa Bay is 4. Those 3 have all clinched their divisions. Dallas and the Giants have clinched playoff spots. And right now, Seattle has that last playoff spot in the number 7 seed. But if Green Bay wins, excuse me, they're actually the team that holds their destiny. Is just with the way the tiebreakers work in the NFL. Being in a 3-way tie is completely different than being head-to-head. It's just how it works. As somebody that runs a bowling league based on these systems, it's a headache. And that's just how it goes. Who gets that last playoff spot?
I think, I would love to see Detroit make it in there. They deserve what they've done over the last few weeks. I think for Seattle is just a little too late. I'm gonna go Detroit.
So you're gonna say Seattle's losing to the Rams?
Yeah,
that's all right. I know one game that we're picking different, and probably two, because you know what? I'm gonna say Green Bay gets in. They are turning the corner a bit. I do wish Detroit would get in because they have had a fantastic year, but their scenario is a bit tougher. Huge Lions fan. Look at all these Seahawks fans coming out of the woodwork, getting that Detroit blue going on. In the AFC, currently right now, Kansas City is your 1 seed, half a game over Buffalo, and a game and a half over Cincinnati, as we still don't know what's going to happen with that game. Jacksonville is the 4 seed. They're not locked in yet. It's a winner-take-all game against Tennessee on Saturday. I think Hagen and I both agree that Jacksonville's going to end up as the 4 seed. Chargers are the 5 seed. Ravens are the 6 seed. Comes down to the 7th seed, which still has the Patriots, Dolphins, and Steelers still alive. Who's the 7th seed in the AFC?
I wanna say Miami as much as, but not knowing, Tua not playing. Pittsburgh has played somewhat better. New England, I'm gonna say Miami. Pittsburgh, I think knocks off Cleveland in that one, but I'm gonna go Miami.
I'm gonna say the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think New England has any chance against Buffalo. Without Tua, I think Miami is in trouble, even against how bad the Jets have been playing. And I think the Steelers can beat Cleveland. I think the Steelers sneak in. I honestly wasn't even thinking that until I looked at this board again, and that's where we're at. Who knew? All right, let's get into our power rankings as I bring up the board. Here we go. Just super quick. I'll go through mine first, right? Is that what I put? Yep. All right. I'm keeping Kansas City at the 5 spot. I do think they're a very, very good team. I think if they make it to the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl, I would not be surprised, but I just don't like how they play against these weaker teams that they continue to play. So I'll have them at 5. Philadelphia, I dropped all the way down to 4. Yes, if Hurts comes back, it's a completely different team. But losing Lane Johnson, their starting right tackle, is going to be an issue for a team that really likes to run the ball. So I'm very worried about the Eagles right now. I'm going to have Buffalo at 3, Cincinnati at 2. It's tough to do anything with them right now with their game still up in the air in Monday. And obviously, seeing an injury like that and a scary situation is rough, but that game was fantastic for the 5 minutes it got played. And I hope that whether they redo this game or they meet in, say, the AFC Championship game, I do want to see these two on the field again. And that means my number 1 team, San Francisco 49ers. I don't care if they're on their 3rd-string quarterback. I don't care if it's Brock Purdy or Tim Tebow or anybody being the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. It could be Zach Wilson quarterbacking the San Francisco 49ers. The rest of that roster is too good, and they're going to be really tough to eliminate come playoff time. All right, give me yours.
Yeah, so I'm going to start at the top one, and I'm going to bounce Kansas City up to the number 1 spot, just because, of everything that's happened. I'm going to bounce Philly out of there, and I've had Philly at the top spot for a long time, but I also am going to move San Francisco up 2 spots, and I'm going to say this. Christian McCaffrey has made a huge impact on this team, and I don't think I want to be an NFC team.
He's your comeback player of the year.
Oh, hands down, hands down.
It's him or Barkley, but I think I give it to McCaffrey.
I'm going to give it McCaffrey. I'm going to keep the Dallas Cowboys in the same spot. They played an unbelievable game here the other night. The defense is just very, very strong. For me, I'm going to move Buffalo up one spot, even though that game did not finish out. I think they have a great chance with Josh Allen with what they're doing. It just looks phenomenal. And I'm moving Philly all the way down, dropping them from 1 to 5. And it's a lot to do with Gardner Minshew, and he just did not look good in this game. The whole offense did not look good. Couldn't get, I think they had like 8 3-and-outs, so it just could not function. And you hit it on the head. It's going to boil down to what can this team do without their offensive linemen.
The fact you don't have Cincinnati in your top 5 is still a crime. I know you're a Ravens fan, and it hurts your heart to do it, but they're too good. All right, let's get to the eliminations. Here are the teams that are locked in. It's a lot of green circles now. We're almost there. There's only 3 spots still available come week 18. Here's who Robert has eliminated throughout the year. Right now, 2 teams have you in trouble. The Patriots and the Jaguars are both in the playoffs right now, and you have eliminated both of them. I don't know why the X's went behind the circles now, but that's Google Slides for you. Who do you got this week?
I think the biggest one that I don't think the Patriots will be able to move that one off there. So I'm going to lose that Jaguar one, but I finally did it. You did it in week 3. I'm going to finally do it. Washington Commanders, you finally have eliminated yourself. There you go.
Yeah, shocker. They're officially eliminated, so go ahead and eliminate them off your board.
Hey, I did well. I did.
And you already have week 18 done because you have a Jets guy over there in the corner who also is eliminated. So I didn't put it on this board yet. We'll make a big reveal of it next week. But there you go. Same thing. There's the teams that are in. Oh, I clicked it too many times. I eliminated the Jets. I eliminated the Jets this week. Same thing. Patriots and Jaguars in trouble for me. We need the Titans to win and Miami to get up there for us to possibly have a perfect board. But right now, we'll see how it goes. I don't want to talk about it, but talk about the picks.
Well, through the games the other night, just looking at 15 games, not having the Buffalo Cincinnati game in, I was able to pick up 2 games back on that one. Randy goes 8-7. I go 10-5.
You know what you said to me this week?
Acknowledge me.
I acknowledge you as the NFL pick winner this year. There's no chance I'm catching up 9 games in the last week.
9 games. It's very tough. 9 games, but there was a couple of games that this week can boil down to it. But listen, I don't know what it is this year. It just seems to be crazy, and we talked about it on our NFL on our Sunday league. I don't know how this one guy is still picking. How Gary is picking teams, and he's still got 4 games on top of.
Yeah, he's doing really good, and he's up at the top of the thing. And Nubo had a really good week in our bowling league. I think he's actually second overall. And then Nancy and you are trying to catch Gary. I'm out of the money. I've just had a garbage year. I mean, yes, we have the extra week, but to lose 100 games through 17 weeks is just.
But you have cash. You have cash more than I have. You've had a couple of big weeks.
I've been so up and down this year.
But then you've had a couple that go from right here, and then all of a sudden the next week I'm like, how did you only get 6 right?
But you know what? I survived the college and high school picks. You crushed me in the NFL picks. I did everything I could the last few weeks. It did not work out. Again, let's go through week 18 really quick before we shift our sights to the Avista tournament. We get Mr. Zach Eastman on the show. But looking at it right now, they still have a to be determined time on ESPN as far as the Ravens Bengals game goes. So I don't know if they are changing that. They even have it on the Saturday slate, which I don't understand. But right now you have your 2 Saturday games, Chiefs and Raiders, Titans and Jaguars. Yes, the AFC South is on the line, but not the greatest Saturday lineup to end the year. Sunday games, especially take out Sunday Night Football. What are the couple games that you're really looking forward to on this final week of the regular season?
For me, like you said, Baltimore and Cincinnati, and I put this on thinking it was going to be a little bit different, different scenario if things would have happened out last night. I think that's a big one, and the other one has got to be Buffalo and New England. How does Buffalo, come back after the short game they had the other night?
Yeah, to me, it's kind of the NFC East. I mean, yes, the Commanders are out, but they can cause havoc with the Cowboys. The Giants are locked in, but do they want to cause havoc against the Eagles? What are they going to do there? Browns and Steelers could be interesting just because, again, that's what I love about the NFL and the way they do their schedule now. It's all division matchups that last week. So even teams that are out of it, they can really cause havoc. Jets, Dolphins. Jets got themselves eliminated, have not looked that great. But right now, according to ESPN, that line is even with the Jets being on the road because the Dolphins quarterback situation is just that bad. And the Jets could eliminate them from playoff contention. And again, that's what you really like about this final week. And then you can have the really fun and watch the garbage bowl between the Texans and the Colts and see if the Colts can get a better draft pick or the Texans can lock up that number 1 pick with the loss. Or see how many interceptions get thrown as they just try to let the other team win the whole time.
It will be an interesting week on how things pan out. I honestly think there might still be some shifting with games maybe in the next day or so, depending on what has went down over things from last night.
Yeah, the things with last night could make things interesting as well. But that's going to do it for our NFL talk. Again, final week of the regular season, pending what they do with Cincinnati and Buffalo is this weekend. And then we'll nail in those playoff matchups if that's where we're at next week and get going. But now it is time to talk local. We had one of our favorite weeks of the entire year with the Avista Holiday Tournament last week. Again, I was able to make it that first day, and then a migraine from hell hit me really hard, and my body just gave up. So luckily, Brian Danner, even though he was not feeling well, was able to cover for me. You were there the whole time. Just talk about that atmosphere real quick, and then we're going to bring in our first guest.
Listen, there's just something about what this tournament has done for the Valley. To start off with 4 teams, 4 girls teams, 4 boys teams over the last, 10 years ago when it first came out to now drawing in, 8 varsity teams, 8 girls varsity, 8 boys varsity, to bringing communities together. And that's the biggest thing I'm going to talk about. I can't wait to get his opinion of it, but let's bring in the 2-time defending Avista champion head coach, Mr. Zach Eastman. Zach, how you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty good. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing good. Talk about this Avista tournament. Obviously, you guys have been on fire for the last couple of years. We had you on last year, and now being able to come back and defend your title. Just talk about this group of guys you have this year, because while you lost somebody as good as Titus Yourout and a couple of the other seniors last year, I think you're a deeper team this year than you were last year.
Yeah, so like you said, we are like a different team than last year. I feel like this year's team, we're just kind of starting to figure out our roles now. I feel like last year we had so many scores. This year, I think we're more focused on defense. I know we can score the basketball, but I know also if there's other teams that can score just as well, we still have to be able to defend. So in practice, I know some of our leaders like Terrell Elwin Jones, he kind of, and Elias Yourout, they're kind of our first line of defense out there. And so they kind of set the tempo, and they've been doing a really well job kind of starting the game off. They play a lot, and they press almost the whole game. So I mean, that's a lot to ask for in a coach.
And that was one thing that I noticed, and you hit it on the head, is just watching how deep they are. I was highly impressed with Chris Bonney with his defense that he had, especially against Shadle Park on Thursday. I think that's the biggest thing I saw was how the defense was playing.
I think Chris Bonney's a good really look at our program. He has been almost on, like, he could have played on any varsity team last year, and we were just so deep, and we've had the same kids for so long that some of these kids are kind of didn't get to shine. And so now people are able to see these other kids that we talk about all the time. We always say, you know, we always have all these kids coming up. Well, here they come, and you know they don't stop. So it's really good to know that we have, you know, Chris is only a junior. You know, I still have him for 2 more years. You know, and Joey Payne on the bench, he also has 2 more years. So we have a lot of, you know, kids that are still going to be coming back next year. But it's good to see, like, Chris Bonney. He works really, really hard. And that's what's really good about Chris is, like, I know I never have to get on him about working hard. He has a really good basketball IQ, and I think that's hard to find also. You know, they can be the fastest kids in the world. They can jump the highest, but if they can't, what I'm teaching them, if they can't put that on the court, then it's hard to work with Chris. Anything I tell them, he can just go do it. I don't have to explain it, which is really nice.
Now, before we get to the Avista tournament, I want to talk about, you just said all the hard work and the preparation you guys do. I've had many conversations, especially around the Avista tournament, and afterwards, after more people go, okay, this Lapwai team is legit. And they go, well, how do they do this with such a small school and a small community? And I go, just go follow Zach on Facebook and see the posts that you do about the kids and the hard work that they put in the off season. Just talk about the year-round program that you have there at Lapwai and how those kids have really bought in.
Yeah, so I mean, I told a story about in other podcasts I did about, you know, after the day after the state tournament, they were calling me and asking me if I can go open the gym because on Sundays we always have open gyms where any kid can come play, and they do that every Sunday. And you know, the day after the state tournament, and you're asking to go shoot around, that just shows you a lot right there. They want to get in the gym, but also, like, I mean, I really kind of brought more of a college feel, I would say. I run it kind of like a college program. You know, I look at what they do. I've been around it my whole life. I went through it, and I just feel like if I run my program like that, if they choose to go to college and that's what they want to do, they're going to be way more prepared. Like my practices are very, very scheduled. Down to every minute, I have a schedule for every practice I've ever had. Everything's timed. Also, like in the off season too, we play different tournaments and we play high quality teams. We're not going and just playing each other all day and stuff. No, we go to very high caliber tournaments and we're playing very high quality teams. So, you know, we don't want to go into those tournaments not in shape, not always ready to go, because everyone wants to beat you, you know, and that's what we want. You know, we want teams to look at our games like, oh, we're ready to play that game, and that's what we want. So I think just our preparation and then conditioning is huge. Conditioning is very big for me. What I always tell my boys is easy to work out in front of me. It's really easy to do because everyone wants to work out in front of coach. Like, oh, coach is watching. Let's work out. Let's work out. What are you doing when I'm not there? And that's where I think our kids stick out a little different than some. You know, some of our kids really, you know, they go play basketball by themselves, you know, like I don't have to be there. They're out there at the Sunset Park in Lapwai playing against each other. So it's good to see.
Yeah. So with that hard work, and again, a small school, small community, but you guys are the powerhouse almost in the entire Northwest, if not at least the state of Idaho, where you're facing some of these higher level schools. And when you talk to the coach or you talk to the athletic directors from those schools, they're like, oh God, we have Lapwai. Like usually it's the other way. It's like, okay, Lapwai's like, all right, we're going to go out and beat this big school. It's the big schools that are like, we got to get ready for Lapwai. And how does that make you feel here? Like some of these big schools say that?
You know, we have a really good crowd. I mean, it's
Oh,
just
man.
awesome. You know, it's just everywhere we go, they're there and they're cheering and they're supporting. And so that alone, you know, every athletic director is going to know it's, you know, we're coming, you know, get your popcorn ready, you know, because we're coming. And which that's always nice. And then I just think, you know, the style of basketball we bring and everything is just fun to watch, you know. So I just think, you know, it's just a good time right now.
Talk a little bit about your coaching staff. It was kind of great to watch you and Why Not coach during the Avista tournament. How deep is your coaching staff? We've never really talked about your coaching staff.
Yeah, so I lost Tommy Miles last year, and he was a really big help with my post players. And then Jeremy was helping me towards the end of the year for the state tournament, kind of getting around. He's just a basketball guy. He's always at different games. We're always talking basketball, and through that, just like relationship, just getting to know him, I just always was like, man, he's always here. I mean, like he just join the team, you know, and you know it's really hard finding like dedicated people that can put that much time into something and you're not really getting paid. And to like he played college, you know, he was all American at LC, played overseas. I mean, and he's right next to me, so that's that's an advantage, you know. And then he obviously knows what he's talking about. In this case, why not? So I mean, he knows something about basketball. And but you know, but we do coach way different. I think we do. That's why we work well together. And I think you know you have two different looks at basketball, but as men we can sit there and oh you're right, I'm wrong, and we can do that together. And I think that's why we work well together because you know, all my assistant coaches know like I call them and text them all the time. Like I'm always talking to them, like just flipping ideas, plays, you know, scouting reports. A lot of them do them for me. We watch different games. Like I'm a basketball fanatic too, so I'm always watching stuff. So it's always nice to know that your assistant coaches are also there and doing the same.
Oh yeah, I know. I called play-by-play for the Lewis and Bengals at least right now for their home games, and I have seen you in the crowd 2 or 3 times this year.
Yeah,
where you guys didn't have a game. You're like, I'm just gonna go watch the Bengals play.
Yeah, I mean, and also I enjoy watching those guys play. I mean, also I know that we're gonna play them, but I enjoy it. I watch some of those kids grow up. Some of my boys have played with them on same teams and stuff like that. So I enjoy all the basketball in the Valley. I feel like we don't have to travel far to get good basketball, which is awesome.
All right, so let's get into it. Talk about this Avista tournament again. Another championship for you guys, and on the girls' side, they get their first championship. So Lapwai becomes the second school ever to sweep both the boys and girls tournaments. What Walla was the other one that was able to do
2019.
Yep. Yeah. So just talk about this experience. Obviously, you've been here before, but Moscow, Lewis, and Shadle Park, all much bigger schools, and Lapwai not only controlled most of these games, but you brought it up earlier. They brought the best. You guys had the best support system. There every single game. Obviously, the Lapwai Lewison game, which I wasn't able to attend, sounded fantastic, crowd wise. But just talk about that support you get, especially for this tournament, and how that affected you guys.
I think also like what our teams have done in the past and how good kids they are, and just like not just good basketball players but good kids. I think that kind of built a good reputation for watching good basketball. And then for the amount of people that came last year, and us playing Lewiston and Clarkston, I feel like we gained some fans in a way, and which that's awesome. I don't really want to be always rivals with all these people. I actually like all these teams too, and we are competitors at the end of the day, and of course we want to win. But I mean, with our support, I mean, it just shows like guys and girls that like the crowds are going to be there, and they can change games, man. Like when you score and you feel that, like you just feel momentum. And in basketball, that's all it is. It's a game of momentum, and who's going to go on the last run? They going to run, we going to run, we going to run. It's always who goes on that last push. And I feel like, with our crowd behind us, we get that momentum, and then some teams just, they can't stop it.
Yeah, and let's talk about game one a little bit. You took on Moscow, and Randy and I said this was probably going to be the game you wanted to watch between their Moscow coming off a good win against Clarkson, also played Lewiston quite well and hard. Moscow looks great this year compared to where they have been in the past. Case comes down with 38 points in that one in a mid-afternoon game.
Yeah, so we knew that a little bit about them from summer basketball. They played in the same, so we kind of knew the guys they had. And then one of the guys, Ian, he played on one of Case's team. He played on his team prior to the team he's on now. And so we had an idea of who one of their main players was, and we knew he was a shooter. So we knew we had to get on him, but also we knew that they had height. So all week in practice. We literally boxed out every day for about an hour. Every drill we did consisted of boxing out, because we knew if we can get them off the glass, we could one shot and done. We can score. So we were just hoping that we can get defensive stops and then we can keep scoring. And I think the boys did a great. When Case starts feeling it, he gets a little look in his eye, and the boys know. They know, like, hey. Cases, get him the ball. Let's set a screen, but also he'll find us too. And I think he's really gaining that trust with the boys. I always tell him, keep your hands ready. I used to have to say it with Terrell all the time. Hey, guys, when Terrell's around you guys have to keep your head up and your hands ready. And now I have to say it for Case too, because he's became such a good passer. So now you have two kids that can just throw the ball at you at any time. So, we're really trying to, teach that.
We set up and George, big shout out to LCSC and what they did. We'll talk a little bit more with tournament director Mike Tatko a little bit later about that. But George had set up the gym for day 2 a little bit different and opened up those back bleachers. Game 2, Lapwai, Lewiston, nightcap. It had the feeling of Golden Throne between Lewiston and Clarkson. That place was packed. That was rocking. But I'm going to say something, and I don't mean this in anything derogatory, but that was the quietest 25 points that came from Case Why Not that I've seen ever played. I mean, very quiet 25 points.
Yeah, for me too. Like when we got done with the game, I thought maybe he had 12. 14 points. You just don't see it. But I think what Case, he doesn't miss free throws. And also he rebounds really well. So you'll miss those 10 points of him just getting rebounds and putting them back in. He gets a lot of points like that. But yeah, it was very, very, very quiet.
Yeah. And then game number 3, you had Case taking on Shadle Park. Shadle Park was one of those teams that we were not too sure about if they were going to make it that far, and they end up knocking off Clarkson. But every one of your guys on that team, other than White, did not even play that game. Everybody got in the scoring column, and you talked a lot about, trusting in each other, keeping your hands ready as those guys pass. And you did see it from Jones and from Why Not.
Yeah, and that game, we knew when you play such a high intensity game like that next day, it's always hard to get it going right away. And during warm-ups, we kind of all felt it a little bit. I could see that some of the boys were missing a couple shots that they normally don't miss. And I think a little tired legs, but I think, just through our system, I think I knew we would eventually start picking it up. Like I say, we go on runs. It was a close game. We go on our 12-4 run, and boom, we're up 15 now. So I think that's what we really. I mean, we don't plan on going runs. That's something not planned. But I know just the style we play, we really go off momentum a lot.
So 44 straight wins, a couple state titles in there, 2 Avista tournaments. I want to talk about one game a couple weeks ago, and I had messaged you after it. I'd watched the whole game on the streaming. I think it's the best game you guys have played, as the most competitive game back and forth against Baker and Oregon during that showcase tournament over there. Obviously, very tough competition, but just talk about how gritty your team was. One of the few times where you guys were down for a lot of that game. They never gave up, especially those last few minutes. Just talk about the character your guys showed there.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been a part of a game where we were down 5 and with 30 seconds left and won. I that's I've been down 3, I've been down 4, but 5 is pretty hard to do. I've seen it go to overtime, but I've never seen it won. So that just shows, I mean, that's something special. And they had to make plays. And I thought was what really happened really well in those games is we have hand signals. And so we don't call things out a lot of times. And because we can't, because people watch us so much. So we have hand signals. And we threw a press on a hand signal, and the other team was not ready for it. They didn't even know. They thought we were just playing the same defense that we were. And it turned into a turnover, and then we got the ball back. And so I think that just, our connection with the kids, the coaching style we have, we're very intuitive of what we're doing out there, and we're into the game. So I thought we made some really good coaching decisions, but also the boys made great plays. I mean, they slapped on the press and they got a steal. But the reason why we play the Bakers and why we play the Post Falls and these bigger schools is because we're getting ready for Avista. We know that Avista's coming, those big schools are coming, so we want to be ready for it. So when Lewiston ran their press that I was at their games, I saw them do it, and they did it to every team. So I knew they were going to do it to us. So I knew that like a team like Baker that traps every pass, you don't know where it's coming from. It was chaotic. That was my first game I've ever coached where we didn't call a play. And we didn't call a play. It was just run, gun, play basketball. They were trapping. We would score. If you watch the game, you'll see there's not one play where it's like looks like we know what we're doing. We're kind of just playing fluid basketball, which is nice.
So now, like you said, you build up the beginning part of the year for the Avista tournament. We've accomplished that. Now you're getting ready to make the run for another state title. It starts fast for you guys this week. Big game against Lakeside, first home game of the year tomorrow. Not that you need to sell it to that community because they're all going to show up in force for that. I'll let you talk about that for a second. But then Thursday, you get Logos. Logos got their first win yesterday, and they're very excited to play you guys. Joking around with the coach last night. That was kind of fun. And then you get Troy on Saturday. So 3 games coming up this week. But talk about Lakeside and that big first home opener of the year.
Yeah, so we've wanted to play Lakeside for a couple years now, and just with our schedules and everything, nothing lined up well. But this year it opened up, and we got a game with them. And I think they have a really good point guard that we're really a lot of our players know, and we're excited to play. I think that they're going to be ready to play. I feel like they're ranked by the coaches poll, Idaho, 3rd in the state. So I think this is a good view on 1A basketball and where the state is, and so everyone can see that. But again, it's it's tribe versus tribe. I mean, that's kind of important to us. It's Lakeside is from the Coeur d'Alene Reservation, and where Lapwai is mainly Nez Perce on the team. So it's going to be a cool little intertribal little battle. So I mean we usually don't really get games like this against other tribal schools. So it's really nice to have a tribal game come back to our community. And not many people will step into our arena. So it's good to see that, they want to come play us at our house. I thought that was pretty brave of them. I like that.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. A first home game and it's January 3rd.
Yeah.
Because you guys go out and face everybody.
Look, last year, our first 9 games last year were away. So I guess that's just, we have to go places to play places, but it builds character though for the end of the year.
All right, Zach, I very much appreciate your time again. I know we had you on last year. Hopefully we'll have you on around state time as well. But from 2 bowlers that definitely still miss you on the NFL league, we congratulate you on another Vista tournament. Again, even though I was only able to make it the first day, you guys always put on a show, and it's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, I hope you guys get to come watch more games. It was really cool to see you guys at the game. It's always good to see Robert give him a fist bump before every game. Now I think that's a ritual. I've never lost a game doing that. So, Robert, we have to keep that up.
I haven't talked to the wife yet. I haven't told her, but I told Randy this is a number 1 against a number 3 tomorrow. I'm probably going to be driving out to Lapwai to catch
Well,
this game tomorrow night.
Obviously, the undefeated streak is because of the fist bump, so you cannot put it in jeopardy.
Yeah, if I see him in the crowd, I'm gonna run to him.
There you go, Zach. Man, I appreciate you.
All right, guys.
Congratulations again, and again, hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. You guys take care.
Exactly.
Yeah, you too.
All right, later, guys.
That's the defending champ, Zach Eastman, 2-time defending champ.
Yeah.
So, we talked about it, and we'll bring it up here with Mike Tatko here in a couple minutes. We look at the teams that come in every year. Mm-hmm. You have to figure it's Lewis and Clarkson Lapwai now, and it's just a staple.
No, it's not. It's just Lapwai now. You talk to the. I talked to both Clarkson coaches, and Clarkson and Lewiston coaches, whether it's assistants or their ADs. All of them are like Lapwai. Like Lapwai is the team to beat. That's who they're all focusing on. Lapwai's first game against Moscow, all eyes were on the Wildcats in that game. Coach Malm was on the floor watching that game very intently. I know Justin Jones was in the stands watching as well, just in case they had met in the championship game. Mm-hmm. It's not, okay, well, we're going to play Lewis and Clarkson and Lapwai. It's Lapwai first right now, especially on the boys' side. And you know what? The girls who I think felt a little disappointed last year that they had lost in the semis to Post Falls, when we're going out, we're winning this. And the fact that they did it against a White Pine Division opponent in the championship game and moved our Golden Throne preview to the third place game shows you how good the White Pine League really is.
No, 100%.
All right, you want to bring in the other guy?
All right, so
he looks like he's ready.
Yeah, he's ready. He's a busy man.
Yeah.
Get into his schedule. He's had meetings all day. He had a brief little window, and then he's got another meeting here at 8:30. We're going to bring in the tournament director for the Avista Holiday Basketball Tournament. We're going to bring in Mr. Mike Tatko. Mike, how are you doing there, buddy?
Great, guys. It's great to see you guys. Happy New Year.
It has been a happy New Year. Mm-hmm. Have you recouped yet from close to, I think I figured it the other day, pretty close to 34, 35, 36 hours of basketball all crammed into 3 days?
I thought I was going to be exhausted, and then the very next day I went back to Lewis Clark State and watched college basketball. So apparently you read that PA announcement so many times that, hey, people, if you haven't gotten enough basketball, come back for Lewis Clark State. So I did. And you just can't ever get enough. Great sport.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well for the Warriors. Obviously, having the former Lapwai player who played at LC, or not played at LC, but played against LC that weekend also helped. But a pretty good crowd there for the Warriors. So maybe LC just needs to make sure that they're scheduling big games after the Avista tournament, because we or Robert at least sells it enough for the 3 days.
Listen, you looked over there, and I talked with Mike a few times about that. How many times you looked over on the side or behind us in the stands, there was LC basketball players, both boys and girls, and other sports. I saw baseball players. I saw a few volleyball players in the stands during the Avista tournament. And so how do we sell this to the college there, Mike? I mean, I know you guys have a great relationship with Brooke and George and all that, but how do we get the rest of the crews, the teams to come and join us?
Yeah, I don't know. They were handing out free tickets, as we all filed out championship night, and I think there was a good contingent from Lapwai because of Emmett Taylor, who came back. Yeah, I don't know. I was just thrilled that we had a great crowd in our 3 days. And then, like you said, to come back Friday, I wasn't able to go Saturday night, but to come back Friday night and see really another great crowd in that gymnasium, that was pretty special. Good for Brooke and good for Austin and Brian.
You talked about big crowds. Do we have numbers yet that have went through the grapevine of how many people showed up for the Avista tournament this year?
Yeah, it's really hard because, the gate, the first day is always the most because we sell tournament passes. And so the second day, while we had way more people the second day, semifinal night, The gate was not as much, and of course, it wasn't as much the third day either because people, that's just the way it works when you sell a tournament pass. But I've always been told there's 35. That place holds 3,500 people, full, and that's what they get for the Golden Throne. And of course, on our night, on semifinal night, the top side of the one side was not pulled out. Or I feel like it would have been full because you had people lining the rails, you had people behind the window. So, I mean, I think we were probably somewhere in the 3,000 range that night. And I really thought that the championship day, a lot of Lewiston Clarkson people, even though they played for third, they stuck around. So to answer your question, a long answer to a very short question is I don't have a number, and I don't know that we'll ever really get a number unless you use the clicker and click as everyone comes through, and we're not going to do that. So we're just happy. We look around, we sit under there. You see us. We stand underneath the basket down there and marvel at all the people and just kind of chuckle.
I talked about it, and I know you were backstage on the show here just a minute ago as I was talking with Zach about this. This tournament started out with 4 teams, 4 girls teams, 4 boys teams. Now we're looking at 8 boys varsity, 8 girls varsity, JV. Where do you see this tournament going? And as this was the 10th, let's just take maybe a 2-year jump or a 5-year jump. Where do you see things happening in 2 years? Where do you see it happening in 5 years?
Well, before I go there, if I could just say one thing about Zach Eastman, what a guy, what a program, what a community leader and mentor to those kids. I was on another podcast with him before the tournament, and I could sit and listen to him all day. And
we don't talk about that podcast on this show.
I didn't say where it was.
I have to go deal with those two here in 30 minutes. So we don't talk about Trevin.
I know. I didn't say anything, but I sat there for an hour and a half or so with him and Coach Jones from Clarkson. I could listen to those guys all day. They were talking. I mean, they actually got into the nuts and the bolts of like strategy, and I'm just like, geez, I just want to learn how to fill out a bracket. I mean, they are so into that. Anyway, he's great, and so I was happy that I could tune in a little bit early tonight and listen to him as well. But back to your question, we work around Lewis Clark State. And so initially it was a 4-team tournament. We had 2 days there. Then we expanded it to 8. We asked them if we could have 3 days there. And of course we work around them, and they had home games, as we know, right after ours. So I don't know, for a couple reasons, if we could ever go bigger and stay just solely in that facility, because I don't know that, there's only 5 days in that week, in Christmas week. And so the way the calendar works, I don't know if that works. And then B, I don't know that high school teams, 3 days in a row, that's kind of what you do at state. At least it is in Idaho. And I know Washington kind of is convoluted, and they change so much, I don't really get it. But I don't know that they would agree to 4. And then I was talking to one of the coaches during the tournament. They all have so many league games, and so their non-league games are really kind of condensed. And so this takes up 3. And then you have to save maybe some room for a rivalry game that maybe the team isn't in this tournament. So to answer your question, I don't know that we can really go up in teams, but there are definitely some things we can make better. And I kind of think that that's what we're going to focus on, is sticking with the same amount of teams and just improving it and massaging it, because there's always stuff that we can do better. And we learned that the other day. We have some stuff to work on.
And we talked about, you and I had the conversation there on Thursday morning, that there are so many other tournaments now that have fed off of what Avista has done over the last few years. So, we look at the Walla Walla one now. They now are doing their own thing. West Valley now does their thing. I showed you a bracket of 64 teams over in the CWAC area. Yeah. They've taken kind of the template from what Avista has done and have started to build this. Is it AAU teams, or is it, these summer league teams that are helping build these programs?
Well, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, somebody said. And, Eastmont of Wenatchee and Wenatchee High both came one year. You guys remember they were both here, and they're rivals. So we put them in different brackets. And I think maybe either their girls or boys ended up playing anyway in consolation, but that's the way it goes when you have a bracketed tournament. And they basically took our model and went home. That's what they're doing, except they have their 2 gyms instead of one big arena like we do. So good for them. the West Valley tournament in Spokane is the Eagle Classic. It's a 64 team deal. The thing about that is you get matched up ahead of time. It's a classic format, so you know your opponents, but they also have situations where teams have a day off because there's so many teams and there's only so many gyms. And so you could have a game on Tuesday and then you don't even play on Wednesday, and then you're playing again on Thursday. So the thing I like about ours is really twofold. One, it's a bracketed tournament. It's like state. The only time you know when you're going to play is day one. And other than that, you don't know when you're going to play. You have an either or, depending upon win, lose. And then the second thing is, I don't know about a lot of these tournaments, whether they're including junior varsity. And that's one of the biggest comments that we get from parents and players and coaches is that you include our young kids. You don't just make it for varsity and then the young kids sit at home or practice or don't get this experience. Now, again, they're not playing at the main arena, but they will. As long as they stay in the program a couple of years, they will. And so the fact that we include a junior varsity tournament is one of the biggest compliments we get. And we don't plan on getting rid of that. We were down a couple of girls teams this year, and we had to go to a round robin format, which we didn't like. And so we're going to focus on getting the girls side back up to 8 next year in the junior varsity ranks.
So you talked about a little bit about things that you want to change, but before we get into that, I want to focus on how difficult is it now to build a bracket when nobody wants to play Lapwai? Hey, because obviously,
Well,
I mean, that's where you hear it's you get 8 teams and you got to make it work. And I know you guys try to separate Lewiston and Clarkston and try to separate division rivals, but now it's almost just okay, just flip a coin and you're stuck with Lapwai.
Well, there are a couple parameters that we follow, and when I say we, it's Shannon Wilson, who's the director of athletics at Clarkston, and Corey Williams, the director of athletics at Lewiston, and we meet throughout the year. And there's a couple parameters. So first of all, Lewiston and Clarkston are always opposite. One always plays first thing in the morning because it's an easy travel for them. It's a mile basically, and the other one always gets the late night bracket, girls and boys, and we alternate that. And so this year, for instance, Lewiston drew the late, Clarkston drew early, and it'll be opposite next year. Lewiston will play at 9 a.m. and 10:30, and Clarkston will play at 6 and 7:30. Lapwai alternates on which side of the bracket they're on. If you remember last year, at 21, Lapwai and Lewiston played in the championship game, and that was after Lapwai had defeated Clarkston in the semifinals. This year, Lewiston and Lapwai played in the semifinals because they're on the same side of the bracket. Yeah. So Lapwai always has the 3 o'clock and 4:30 o'clock afternoon, evening-ish game. So next year, they'll be with Clarkston. Lewiston will be on top. Now, as far as who plays them in the first round, it won't be Moscow next year because it was Moscow this year. So Moscow will more than likely flip up to the top. And then really after that, I heard you guys talking about it's Lewiston, Clarkston, Lapwai, and it's really Lewiston, Clarkston, Lapwai, Moscow. Those are kind of the 4 staples. Everyone else has kind of flittered in and out. Grangeville girls are kind of a staple now, but their boys were not there this year. They took themselves out. Prairie was a new entrance this year on both girls and boys, and their girls made it to the finals. Their boys are rebuilding. So really after those 4 staples, assuming Lapwai agrees to come back, which I'm almost certain they will, and Moscow too, because Josh Urig and Alexa, they like the tournament. I think they'll come back. So those 4 are pretty well set. And then it's kind of let's see. And here's the other thing about picking the teams. It didn't used to matter in either state because it was just, there was no ranking. It was kind of like the brackets were set at the state level and you just plugged in teams. Well, that's not the case anymore. Washington has been seeding state tournaments for several years. Idaho just started seeding state tournaments last year or 2 years ago. So you qualify, but then once you get there, you have a ranking based on how you did in the regular season. And so we're getting more and more feedback from Justin and Brooks and Carly and Debbie, the 4 staples, and Moscow to a point, saying, hey, we need you to get us good teams, even if we lose. Because if we lose to a good team, it still helps us. If we lose to a bad team, we're supposed to beat them. And so we're starting, I wouldn't say they're pressuring us, but the bug is in our ear to make this field as good as we can. And that's not to say 1A teams aren't good from Idaho, because obviously 1A teams won the championship this year, and we had another 1A team in the finals. But what I told Zach and Brooks and Justin specifically was, when you're out playing summer league ball this year, or even in the regular season, if you see somebody who you think would be a good fit, ask them if they're open. Ask them if they consider it. You know the format. Tell them what it's about. Tell them what they get. They get a shirt. They get a water bottle. They get one hotel night free. They get stuff. They get to play in a beautiful, spacious P1 FCU arena. They get good competition. So we're hoping that those coaches are helping us sell this tournament just as much as Corey and Shannon and I are.
And we talked about it in last week's show. Randy and I have said this. Avista has to be in the top 3 events that happen in the Valley, at least for me, every year. You know, you've got NAIA, you've got Golden Throne, and you've got Avista. I mean, those are very, you know, for me, it's got to be the baseball, probably the highest. But as far as Golden Throne and Avista, those are interchangeable. I mean, big things happening for our Valley.
Yeah, you know, I talked to somebody about someone's tried to compare it to the Golden Throne, and I've been to the Golden Throne. I have kids who went through Lewiston High School, and great friends who coach at Clarkson and Lewiston, whatever. So I've had opportunity to go to several Golden Thrones. And the difference between that and what we just had is that it's so much more high school based. There's not a ton. I didn't see a ton of high school support at the Avista tournament because a lot of kids they're off break. You know, they don't want to maybe go to a school function. Maybe they're skiing or in Hawaii or whatever. But when you get to the Golden Throne, and you guys have witnessed it, it's 4 straight hours of high school kids just screaming at each other.
Yes.
Across the gym.
100%.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you cannot, the Golden Throne is the worst place to take a first date than any other place in the world, because you're not going to be able to visit with her. You know, you just sit there and look at each other and make eyes at each other, I guess, because you can't visit. You know, you just can't do it. In our tournament, it gets loud at times. You know, when Case Wynot goes off, or when Michael Wren led Lewiston back in the 4th quarter and made a game of it. You know, the crowd gets crazy and it gets loud, but not for 4 straight hours. And I think that's what is different about the Golden Throne. It's just kind of a different mentality going in. It's a spirit competition, and then there's a basketball game going on in the background, really.
Yeah, to me, honestly, the Golden Throne is compared to any like World Cup game in soccer, where people are just there to chant. Like, there's a game in there, they very much care about what's going on in the competition, but they will come out and just break out into chants randomly, and you go, where did that come from? Or they'll just start singing songs. My favorite thing with the Golden Throne is, especially on the years like Robert's doing PA and whoever's running music, they just start playing music that they know that the kids are going to sing to, and then they'll stop the music and the kids just continue to sing along and have a good time. Yeah. It's like you said, it's very difficult to get that atmosphere at the Avista, but also I think it's even more amazing that the Avista gets that many people when you take out all of the high school interaction that we get at the Golden Throne.
Yeah. And again, not to sell the Golden Throne game short, because it's important. I mean, those kids want to win, and those coaches want to win, and those schools want to win. But to me, it's more of a spirit thing. The thing I think about the Avista tournament, and I've talked to you guys probably about it and many, many others, is you can be standing there at the game or sitting there and you look up and you see somebody and you're like, now what connection does that person have to this tournament? Where is he from again? Or where is she from again? Or what are they doing here again? And then it's like, they have no connection. They're just here to watch basketball because it's Christmas. It's the week between Christmas and New Year's, and they just want to watch Lapwai. You know, I mean, it's amazing the people that I run into there. And at first I'm kind of like, now, why are you here? They don't have to have a read. They just want to watch Lapwai, you know? So you're right. You guys are right. It's not a student heavy crowd, but it's a basketball junkie heavy crowd. If I hadn't anything to do with it, I'd still be there morning till night.
It's such a great time, and I'm sad that I was unable to make it the last few days. I'm glad that Danner was able to experience it, because usually he's off doing LC games, and for him to be able to actually see the P1 FCU Activity Center that packed for the Lapwai Lewiston game, I'm sure was great for him. But you had mentioned a couple things. You guys were already coming up with ideas to change. Can you give us any ideas of what might change or
Absolutely.
what you're working on right now?
Yeah. First of all, the biggest improvement to me, and I brought this up, and I don't know if anybody. There I am. Except the PA announcer Robert and the radio announcers. We made the program bigger so you could see the kids' names. The program was small.
We appreciated it.
That was one of the things that I wanted to do. And we enlisted the help of a high school student in a class at Lewiston High School. Colby Weeks, need to give him a shout out, and he rebuilt the program at a big format. So it's a big program, and so it may seem little, but I think to some of the people like me who are getting up there in age and their eyes don't work so much, it's good to be able to see who's on the court. So that was one thing we accomplished, and we're happy about that. We need to fix the concessions. And I don't know if you guys were in on that because you're working the game. You probably didn't have time to get up and get concessions. We have to work with Lewis Clark State and Sodexo. We're well aware of the lines, and they weren't acceptable too long. And so we need to open another concession stand, or we need to sit down with them, and we will. And we need to fix something there. We're still trying to, so if you know of anybody, we're still trying to get together like a tournament app on a phone, like they do at AAU tournaments, where you punch in the information, you know the score, you know when you're going to play the next day, instead of having to go look at the bracket and the program around the wall. You know what uniform color you're going to wear. You guys will laugh at this, but we sometimes have had confusion with what color am I going to wear? In fact, Shadle Park had to go back to their hotel, I believe, one day and get their other uniforms because they were confused about the bracket. So, stuff that maybe people like, oh, that's so petty. It's such a great tournament. That's not a big deal. It is a big deal. I want it to be perfect. I don't want anybody to wait in line at concessions because you miss great basketball. I want coaches to walk into the gym and the team is holding their white uniforms, and that's what they're going to wear. I want them to know what locker room they're going to. Stuff like that really an organizer loses sleep over. Those types of things. We do want to get back to 8 on the girls, and what happened there is Grangeville didn't have enough to bring a JV on the girls' side, and so we had to fill in, or we didn't fill in there. And then there was somebody else who didn't bring a JV on the girls' side. We were fortunate that Lakeside stepped in place of Shadle Park, who didn't have a boys JV. So kudos to Corey and Shannon for hustling and getting that fill in. And as it turned out, they very well could have been in the varsity tournament, from what I understand. Is they're a good team and you're going to go watch them play in Lapwai, I understand. So just, stuff that I just want it to be smooth so that our phones aren't ringing and people aren't texting us the whole time saying, hey, did you think about this? What about this? What about this? So, and I don't know, anybody who's watching, or you guys, you guys have been there enough and seen a lot of games. You guys have ideas? Bring them. We're looking to make it better.
Yeah, right now, again, I was only there for the first day. I agree with the concessions. I think they were very long. I tried to avoid them as much as I could because, like you said, I had very little time in between. I was only covering the Lewiston games as far as my job, but I sat there and watched all of them. Was trying to keep track of stats so we could post them on our Facebook pages and try to keep everybody updated. But yeah, some kind of a form to keep everyone updated, whether it is just for the teams would be good as well. So I think we're going in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, and maybe that's R&R Sports Report. Maybe you're the official, media outlet, because you'd be amazed.
Hey, we'll take the traffic.
Yeah, the night before, another unsung thing that no one really knows about it, but Corey and Shannon and I met at Clarkston High School, and we're putting the shirts together. Every team, every participant, varsity JV gets a shirt, and so they turn in their sizes, and so we're sitting there in that big bar and the Clarkston. I don't mean bar as in drink bar, but the place in the office, and we're sorting shirts and stuffing them in paper bag or plastic bags and getting ready to give them to the participants. And it's amazing how many people were messaging me the night before. What's the pairings? And that's unsettling. So we need to maybe we need to do a better job of getting it out to as many outlets as we can and finding a place where people could just go and get the brackets and get the pairings, because when someone's messaging you, you know, at 10 o'clock the night before the first game's at 9 o'clock, you don't have the pairings. It's like, we definitely have some things to fix. It's not perfect by any means, but to you guys and our sports report and to what you do on site for 3 days in a row, thank you.
Oh, no problem.
That's
We very
awesome.
much love. We have so much fun doing it again. I was really sad I was only able to make it through one. Robert did
I hope you
PA
feel
basically
better.
for all of them. Well, I'm good. I'm totally fine. My head just died. But yeah, Hagen's always there. We talk about it for months, getting ourselves ready for this tournament. You put on a great show, and like you said, it's only going to get better from here. 10 years down, many more on the road. And Mike, thank you so much for coming back on and kind of reliving through the craziness that were those 3 days. And we'll be talking to you soon because baseball season's right around the corner.
Yeah, it is. It's 3 days of crazy. But thanks again for all you guys do, not just for that tournament, but for year round and all sports and this show. And I know you have other stuff that you do in real life, and you have families and stuff like that. And Robert's always posted amazing recipes, and I need to take more. They're really good. And you guys are like bowlers and stuff. I mean, we could go on and on and on. But I love talking to you guys.
I had shared with Randy. I showed Mike there Wednesday morning your last 300 game on NFL League last year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I saw the video. He had it on his phone, and I was kind of like, he didn't really he didn't jump up and down into someone's arms, you know, like Don Larson, Yogi Berra, the perfect game in the world. That's something I would do if I rolled like a 200 game. And I thought you were very stoic, Randy, with that 300 game. I was happy to be able to see on video. So keep it up.
I appreciate it. We had a good time. It was a good week to do it when that went down. But I appreciate it, Mike. We'll be back in touch here soon. Again, Warrior Baseball is just less than a month away now before Brian heads off to Florida to cover that. But Mike, great tournament, and we'll keep in touch.
Thanks again. Happy New Year, guys.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. That is Avista Tournament Director Mike Tatko, and dude, what the work that he puts in besides his regular job, what he does too. He's a busy man with what he does, along with Corey and Shannon. It's awesome. We need to get him some support. Maybe we need to find a support staff, you know, that, you know, if people want to donate their time to do stuff for the tournament.
I'm sure Taco would very much be willing to do that. Like you said, I know I made fun of a few people about getting their steps in, especially Corey, as he was running up and down, making sure teams were going on. Kevin was running around as well. Shannon reffed some of those games throughout the tournament to help out. So I'm sure they're always looking for volunteers and especially try to get some of these students involved if they're still in town for that, and just try to make it a little cleaner, and it'll just continue to get better and better. And again, thank you to Mike Tatko and Zach Eastman for spending some time after that tournament with us and helping fill out almost a full hour of the show, and it made things easier for us. But before we end the show, we do have to talk about LC sports.
Yep.
I do still have my LC hat on. I do start with Alicia and then helping her out covering some games in 10 days. So I got to still get the Warrior stuff out there. And we'll start, sadly, with the men's side, where they did struggle this past weekend, where they do lose to Eastern Oregon 79-73. Davin Brown had a really good game in that one, 21 points. Colfax's own John Lustig with 13 in that one. 4 players scored double digits. They shoot almost 60% in that game, but 20 turnovers really were the difference for the Warriors. And then they have a tough one against the number 3 team in the country, College of Idaho, and we're never really in that game. Lose that one 82-58. I know you were there doing the PA. College of Idaho jumped out to a 24-7 lead, had a 48-20 halftime lead, and they were just never into it.
No, not at all. And I talked with Coach Austin Johnson during Avista, the Wednesday of Avista, and he was asked him, I said, what are we looking for, you know, these teams? He says, you know, both of these teams are big schools this year. The way they're playing, it's going to be good competition. And that's what happened. Bad thing, LC just came out flat on Saturday. Could not get a bucket to fall on either end of the floor. even coming out at halftime, and really tough to watch those guys struggle the way they did.
On the women's side, though, the women continue to crush it, even though, again, I wasn't there this weekend. I know Taco said he was there Friday. I don't know if you got to watch any of the women's game on Saturday before your PA duties, but they did not play their best basketball this weekend from everyone I've talked to. Still come away with 2 wins, including a win against number 20 Eastern Oregon, 71-69. Ellie Sander, who has really blossomed over the last couple weeks, finished with 19 points. Sarah Muehlhausen with 12 points in that one as well. Hannah Broyles had 10, and Maddie Holm had a pretty quiet 9 points, 10 rebounds in there. She ends up being your Cascade Conference Women's Basketball Player of the Week for the second time this year, because then she goes out and has 21 points and 14 rebounds against College of Idaho in a 60-53 win, where LC only shot just under 38%.
Yeah, for them in that one, just holding tempo and controlling the ball. But Maddie Holm looked unbelievable when I got there at the third quarter. Her third quarter was just phenomenal. What she was doing on both sides of the floor, and so this team has got the strength to move on and be a big contender, not just in the CCC.
Yeah, absolutely. 10th in the nation as far as the last poll. They might have released a poll today. They release them so sporadically, and I never pay attention, but they should be moving up whenever that next poll comes in. They have won 12 straight since losing their season opener against one of the top teams in the country and are top of the Cascade Conference. The basketball teams are on the road this weekend, Friday at Warner Pacific and Saturday at Multnomah. So keep your eye on lcwarriors.com for all of those results and see how they go. But then we will really quickly talk about college football as the semifinals happened. And I have not been shy about saying how much I hate the bowl games. I can't stand how many of them there are, and that they do the transfer portal between the regular season and the bowl games, which just show that they don't matter even to college football themselves. But these 2 semifinal games I was very interested in. Unfortunately, I had to be at a wedding, so I missed a good portion of both of these, watched the long highlights. They were fantastic games. TCU beats Michigan 51-45, where TCU jumped out early. 2 pick sixes really helped them in that one. Michigan had a chance to come back late. That last drive was interesting, but TCU moves on to the championship game. And then Georgia and Ohio State, just a complete slugfest in that one. Great fourth quarter by Georgia to come back, take the lead. Ohio State has a chance with a late field goal. CJ Stroud just took over that game for the Buckeyes, get them into a decent field goal position. And unfortunately, the field goal was very far off. But we get Georgia and TCU in the championship game. And Robert, what did you think of these 2?
Well, I got to watch the first half of the TCU game. Michigan, highly impressed with what Max Cadogan is doing with those guys. And like you said, I got to watch the fourth quarter as I worked over there at LC on during the Georgia Ohio State. Got made at home to watch the fourth quarter, and it was just a slugfest back and forth with those guys. What Bennett did, almost 400 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 1 on the ground, 3 in the air. Just impressive of what those ball clubs were doing, even with Bama not being there, even though, those teams that are the 6, 7, and 8 teams. So highly impressed. I can't wait for this game next Monday.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a fun one. TCU is a huge underdog as far as Vegas is concerned. But who do you got? Who's your champion?
Listen, if my cousins and my family catch wind that I do not take the Bulldogs in this one, I will feel the wrath of my family. So give me Georgia. I'm a little hesitant with the points, though, because they're saying 13.
Yeah, 13 is a lot. Real quick, before I do my prediction, congratulations to Robert for winning the Bowl Pick'ems. You beat my random circling. You went 24-18. I went under 500 right now. 20 and 22. So you got me by 4 games. We have no more different until this national championship game, because I am taking TCU, and luckily for me, it has been determined by half of the R&R Sports Report that the national championship game is worth 5 points. So I have a chance to come back and win the bowl pick'ems. That's all I got. I'm not winning the NFL pick'ems. It's been decided. Taco's still listening down here. He applauded. He agrees. So it's 2-1, Robert. You lose the vote. With 5 points on Monday. So we will have all of your Week 18 action. Hopefully we'll know what happens with the Cincinnati-Buffalo game by then. Hopefully we'll have an update as well on Damar Hamlin. With that situation, we'll have the national championship game. We'll have the FCS championship game as well between North Dakota State and South Dakota State. And that one is Sunday. So we'll have those updates as well. Lots of high school action, as Zach Eastman said. It's conference time now. Like, we got through Avista, now it's all about league play. We'll keep you updated with that and everything that goes with it. But for now, that is going to end a very jam-packed R&R Sports Report. We'll be back next week. I want to once again thank Mike Tatko and Zach Eastman for hanging out with us, talking about the Avista tournament. Thank you to Robert Hagan for being there for all 22 games, right? 22, because 2 games get moved off on Thursday, but still 22 games there being the PA. And I think you took like a half of a game off once.
It was a long day. And that was the first thing that George and Brooke and Katie from LC said. How did your voice hand as I walked in there Saturday to call LC? So took Friday off, but didn't say much. So I guess that's all that matters.
Beautiful. We'll have all those reactions and so much for next week. But for now, that's Robert. My name is Randy. This is the R&R Sports Report. We'll see you next Tuesday. But for now, we are out.